Hi, I'm Stu Kagan, and welcome to Born Scrappy, the podcast for scrap metal exporters and traders. Join me in conversation with some of the most experienced traders and operators that have helped shape this incredible industry. In today's episode, I'm sitting with Bill Sulak. Bill is the president at Ferrous Processing and Trading, FPT. With over 20 yards, FPT has grown into one of North America's premier metal recyclers. Bill is also very involved in REMA and can be seen speaking at some of their events. In this week's episode, we chat about building talent from the ground up, avoiding risk with buyer spreads, leading during market swings, tracking operating costs, planning for key exits, and so much more. So let's jump into it with Bill. But first, intro. Hey, Bill. Welcome to Born Scrappy. How are you?
Hey, Stu, doing great. How about yourself?
Yeah, awesome. It's a hot day in Texas. It's my happy place. So all good here. Where are you at the moment?
Perfect. I'm in Detroit today.
Beautiful. Bill, we've chatted for a while. We see each other at every conference. You're hugely involved in REMA and getting involved, as in being as involved as you can in the industry. And I love it. Every time we run into each other, we have a great conversation. I think there'll be a lot more of those in our future as well, based on the 20 minutes we've just spent chatting before this. But I think not everybody knows, the background and where Bill comes from, how long he's been around. I think, I know you've been in it for a long time, but I think if you can give everybody some background, how you got into the industry and how long you've been going and what you do at the moment.
Absolutely. I come from outside of this world. I didn't grow up in it. Although, my father did work at Rouge Steel, now Dearborn Works, for 44 years. My grandfather actually started working there as soon as they started melting steel in the early 1920s, and my brother's there today. So it's always been in my blood. And I knew that scrap existed, but I had no knowledge of the industry at all. And graduated from college, had a couple of roles in a variety of industries, just knew that it wasn't the right fit. So I was looking for an industry and really an organization that met my needs. And what was that? Growth related industry that wasn't tied to the local economy. Grew up in Michigan. We were in a single state recession at that time and seemed to have a lot of upward mobility. So I was playing volleyball. It's basically indoor volleyball on a racquetball court. A buddy of mine said, "Hey, I know you want to make a change. You should check out the scrap business." Like, what are you talking about? He said, "Just go to the Suave website, the parent company of FPT." And I checked them out and I could check off all the boxes. So the only position that was available was an entry-level scale operator. I filled out the application, went to the yard. I was a banker at the time, three-piece suit, knocked on the door. My now COO looked at me. "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm here for the scale operator position."
No, you're not.
"You're no scale operator." And that was 20 years ago, and here we are today.
I mean, I'm guessing that went well, that role. But what do you do now when guys are coming out of college? Can you still get guys out of college that will jump on a front scale, or are you finding you have to change things at FPT and give them different sort of ways or different routes to come in?
It's always our preference to start someone on the ground floor, and we love that because we're an industry that has such a tremendous amount of grit and ingenuity, and the only way you learn the business truly is by doing it yourself. And while I don't have as much experience as someone that's been working a material handler or operating a shredder for 20, 30 years, just that that time that I did have in each of those different tenets of our organization was absolutely critical. So we'd love to really bring someone in at the ground floor, bring them up through our system, give them experience in all aspects of our industry, and over time we find that that leads to the best long-term result. However, if we have experienced individuals that want to join our team, they make up an important part of our family as well.
It's a really important topic for our industry as a whole. So we're diving straight into a topic just because it came up. But bringing in college students or bringing in the next generation into the industry, it's a lot harder because there's much sexier industries where people can go in a three-piece suit, or people can work from home, which we can't really do. You can't run operations from home, so we'll work in the operations. I should. You can't sort metal from home at the moment. So
No.
when kids are coming out of college and it's like, well, where do they go? You know, I'm almost willing to say, okay, well, if we're going to put you on the track to be more in logistics, I might stick you more on that side. Or if I'm going to put you're going to be more on the account side, I might give you a shorter period in the yard, a longer period actually learning to negotiate and trade and operate. I'm not saying that's the right way or the best way, but is that the way we bring in more people, or do we just stick to the way we've always done it and hope people join the industry?
So, are you familiar with Grace Hopper?
No.
Look her up afterwards. But really, someone that was groundbreaking in computer science, a field that you're familiar with, and was an admiral in the Navy. And my favorite quote from Grace is, the most dangerous phrase in the English language is, "It's the way it's always been done." And yes, what I described is my preference and how we typically like to manage that process. But you have to do it on a case by case basis, and you're always trying to improve. So, yes, I think today we prefer that people go through that full system, but I don't know if people have the patience to sometimes see that through. You have to show them a light at the end of the tunnel, and you have to let them know that, hey, okay, this is part of the process. And depending on their propensity and natural gifts and talents that they possess, you can quickly see which area that they gravitate towards and start nudging them in that direction. But still like to give them as much of that background as we can.
Yeah, and I think for us, one of the key things what you touch on is trying to show them the opportunity in the industry, that you might be doing this today, but here's example X who was once doing that, who's now doing that. Here's example Y who was once doing that and is now doing that. Like you started at the ground, you arrived in a three-piece suit, and then you handled the scale. But it makes it difficult for us. But I think you've got to lead with that. And the more the industry as a whole shows it, the more people will be driven to our industry. So that's where it comes to social media, promoting our industry and showing that there is so many places you can go, right? All of a sudden you're a commodity trader, right? In our industry, we trade commodities. You're an investment banker. If you get to certain positions, you're an investment banker, right? The different things that people are doing in this industry. When college students look at the industry, they often think junkyard. We need to get them thinking, wow, it's like a whole nother world of wherever I might be strongest is where I could land up.
I agree with you completely. And it is a whole nother world. It's an entire universe that's out
Absolutely.
there for people. Frankly, myself personally, I'm thankful that more didn't pursue it, because it might not have opened up the opportunity for myself. I'm someone that always believed in going in the opposite direction. And, this industry was that for a period of time, but it doesn't have to be, because
Yeah.
there's the potential really to turn it into whatever you want. And that possibility doesn't exist in most industries and most fields.
So I know at FBT, I know you run the commercial team as well, and it's a part of your experience that you've had on the buying and the selling side. And at the end of the day, we're trading metal on a daily basis. Can you think of an experience that you've had which offered you like some significant learning that may has stuck with you forever, and everything that you ever train anybody is revolving around maybe one story or a few different stories?
Gotcha. Well, The thing that, just a period that sticks out, 2008, for those of us that, were involved in the business at that time, wasn't that long ago. But I know for myself, just that product diversification and diversification of customer base and strength of relationship. I know that those are things that are common sense and that everyone, says, hey, you have to diversify your customer base. You have to, really focus on developing relationships. But when your book of business goes from X to zero,
Very quickly. Yeah.
literally overnight, you really learn in that moment what those relationships truly mean. And you really understand in an instant the value of having other options, so that no matter what happens, which effectively that is the worst case scenario, right? Your entire
I hope
business
so.
dries
I
up
hope so.
overnight. It doesn't get much worse than that.
I hope we
Uh,
don't see worse in 2008.
Yeah, so if you can make it through that, you can make it through anything. And it was just reinforcing the basics of what we know, but sometimes don't always practice.
So, Bill, I want to double click on that quickly because you talk about diversifying your customer base, but you also talk about building strong relationships. And a lot of people in this industry, you know, think that that's two opposite things because, well, if I have a strong relationship with you, I'm going to be selling you a lot of metal. But how do I diversify and have 20 people that I sell this commodity to? But then that ruins my relationship with you.
No, they're complementary. They're complementary, because all of our needs change. And in some cases, I'll focus as a buyer in this instance. My program needs might change significantly from one month to the next. If you're a valued supplier and you're completely reliant upon my program, that puts both of us in a difficult situation. So they are complementary. Because there is that fluidity in the marketplace, it really is reciprocal as far as the benefits of maintaining a strong relationship. But a part of that is just understanding the ebbs and flows of the industry and working together as those needs change. And that requires, a broader customer base.
And it's even, even on the other side, I guess it is actually the same way you showed it. But if I'm selling material, right, if I'm selling metal on a daily basis and I'm relying on two or three buyers that are always buying the same metal, if something happens for any reason in their geography, for example, maybe I'm supplying Pakistan all this material and I'm comfortable with them but all of a sudden their currency, it falls away, it becomes a massive problem. Although you don't have any US dollars anymore, which happened just a few years ago, all of a sudden you're stuck with, but they're the only place I built a relationship. And the relationships are they're meant to buy from me forever because we have a relationship. And that's what I always get told, that, well, a relationship will make sure you always have a home. Yeah, you do always have a home when they're buying or when
Exactly.
they want your material. And at any time, if you're not offering to multiple commodities and multiple geographies or multiple buyers to make sure that you're always getting the best option, often you won't be getting the best prices because you're just reliant on one relationship.
I agree. I agree.
And I think we found that in 2008. And if you lived through that in 2008, you're very careful now to be stuck in one market because we're seeing it now with Thailand. You can't be stuck into one market. You have to have more options.
You can't. I mean, there are some instances where it's not practical, based on the commodity or the mode of transportation that is available for certain processors, to go outside of a certain area.
Hmm.
But that exception aside, the more markets that you have access to, the better it is for you, for your organization, and the better it is for those customers because the dynamics change so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And trying to predict that is almost impossible, as we've all seen. Is impossible.
It is.
So when you are then trading your metal and you are selling your metal around the world or locally inside the US, what are some of the key factors that influence who you decide to actually sell that to?
Gotcha. It is. It's the relationship and consistency that is a significant component. Obviously price plays a role, um, but usually when you have that relationship, the pricing will follow. Um, I mean, there's always limitations and based on dynamics, but um, it's just those basic principles. And of course, you have to credit is important. We all need to get paid for the services and products that we produce.
How do you ensure your team builds those relationships? I mean, somebody wrote to me just the other day and they said, Stu, I feel you don't press your guests enough to give us practical experiences and how actually they do it, because it's easy to give an overarch, well, we do better relationships. How are you making sure your team is constantly working on those relationships, constantly getting the best prices out there?
Great question. Building, having a relationship, it's more than having someone's business card. Uh, it takes time, and you have to prove yourself. For my team, their goal is to know the business, of their customers as well as those individuals know their business, because that's how they're going to be able to add value. And if you do that over and over and over again, it becomes easy. And then that commercial piece is just natural because you're adding a tangible value to their business that others simply are not. And I think it's really that easy.
That answer can roll out in any industry around the world. And I'll tell you why. Because as you were saying that, I was like, you know what? Like when I look at my customers on Buddy that I work with, I always say, I work for you now, right? So there's no cost to be on Buddy. We have a take rate if you trade, if you conclude anything. I understand the business of my customers as well as they do because I've been doing it for 27 odd years.
Exactly.
So when they're saying, oh, they put up a picture of maybe some motors, I can say to them, hey guys, those photos aren't great. Like, have you thought about maybe taking out those few motors and putting them in a different parcel, and then you'll get a premium rate for this? They benefit from that, and they become a lifelong customer with an incredible relationship.
Absolutely.
And it's exactly what you want your guys to do.
Exactly. I mean, anyone can go in and offer someone $1 more a ton, or give a discount price on this. That's not sales. That's not having a strong commercial acumen. It's how are you going to add value to those customers that frankly puts you above the rest, and that value added proposition from my perspective has helped me develop some really wonderful and long-standing relationships, and that's what I expect from my team as well.
I really like it. It does mean your team has to be well trained, which takes us back to the first point, which is probably need to spend a little bit more time in the yard, but they can grow that at the same time, learn from other customers, what worked at some, learn from other people in their team, have a strong team with strong leadership really makes that much easier to achieve. But yeah, I think once you're adding that value, and it's not just monetary, you have a huge impact with relationship, and which has then an impact on the bottom line.
Absolutely.
Like all metal recycling companies, and the majority of people that listen to Born Scrappy own or work in a metal recycling facility operation, we need to buy metal. We have to buy metal. Our businesses are nothing. You can get the fanciest equipment. If the metal doesn't come in the door, those hungry monsters sit there with nothing to do. You don't have a business for very long. What's your strategy to bring metal in the door? And now just, some people are like, well, social media. Some people are like, well, my location. Pricing is really important, but how do you tell people about that? Marketing. I have people. What are you guys at FPT, or what have you seen work really well to bring scrap or metal in the door?
Great question. It varies slightly from region to region depending on the market. In some of our more mature markets, we've been around since we celebrated our 120th anniversary last year. So, and some of those in our legacy footprint, the name is better known than other markets where we've just entered them in the last year or two. So there's a variance in strategy, depending on that location. Where we're, those more mature markets, people know who we are, but it's just trying to provide that service, focus on the relationship, which it's easy to stray from that model when you are, a well-known commodity. So I still have to continue to remind the team to have that focus. It doesn't go away. It's more critical than ever. Newer markets, yes, you have to rely on other sources because you're entering the market and you're developing that goodwill and you don't have that name recognition. So it's a variety of both or a combination of both.
Okay, so what do you do, Bill? You enter a new market. You haven't been there for 120 years. How are you getting metal in the door?
So what we've done is first kind of like building a shopping mall. You have your anchor tenants, which is usually framed with a couple of key relationships. Then it's community engagement, and which includes local chambers, the local political figures, and just going out and establishing relationships with the business. And some of the smaller communities that we serve, doing a lot of charity functions and community outreach functions have been really successful for us. Frankly, haven't utilized social media as much as we should, but recognizing now that it's an absolutely critical tool and starting to take better advantage of that as well.
It's a really good point. Some of that stuff doesn't cost any money. I mean, social media doesn't have to cost you any money. We have incredible content owning metal recycling yards. You can take photos every single day of what's coming in, examples, and we've got great people in our yards to be able to include in it. So that doesn't have to cost any money. And neither does the charity work. We're not asking, you see a couple of my good friends in the UK that donate these really big checks, and they go and they take a big check and it says the big amount that they're donating to whatever cause. It doesn't even have to be that. It can be placing a bin in an area to collect cans, being aligned with Jessica with the million can operation. So doing that sort of stuff gets your name out there, especially when you go into a new area. And what seems like, I mean, it's also benefiting you, but bringing in the cans, bringing in any metals from areas and helping people clean up their areas or clean up their schools definitely gives you some great exposure as a new person in an industry.
Exactly, and from a business perspective, it's common knowledge. You say, what any good deal has to benefit both parties, right? Well, in this case, I believe that reciprocal relationships, if you haven't noticed a common theme, are critical in all aspects in life. We truly believe that it's our responsibility to be good stewards of the communities that we serve. And if I really believe that, then that community outreach is part of our responsibility. Yes, there is a benefit that goodwill, typically does over time provide a tangible and positive benefit to your business. But you always have to start by doing the right thing. And if you do the right thing, then these things occur. It takes time, and it's never easy. But over time, we found that the rewards are, always outweigh the effort.
I always like going into, we had, 80 odd, 85 yards, and we were constantly opening up new areas in Southern Africa. And what we would do is we would align ourselves with local schools, however, hospitals, get any of the recycled metal, clean them all up for them, give them all that money. And then we would ask if we could put up, and this is a little cheat sheet for anybody listening, ask if we could put up a banner or a big sign that said, X school working hand in hand with FBT to keep whatever town clean. And that banner gives you this halo effect. So even though you're new in town, immediately a school that's been there 200 years is now affiliated with you, and now they see you in the same light. And we found that had a huge impact to get, public positive sentiment when you're opening up a new metal recycling operation.
Agree completely.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about data, and I think you love this part of the world as well, especially in your three-piece suit. So arriving to work on the scale. So How are you using data? Do you rely on data a lot to make decisions, or is it still quite a bit of gut feel? Um, just give me overarching, like where are you using data? Where could you be using it better? How's it going on your side?
Yeah. So, after a while, when you really have your fingers on the pulse, it really is running through your veins. I always,
Mm,
you know, say in our business, you have to marry the both. It's the art and the science. The art is that gut feel and that intuition by, having the tenure and the relationships in the industry. The science is the data piece. And you one it's a challenge to be successful if you're only relying on one and not the other. They're
mm,
complementary and both necessary. When we look at data and metrics, I'm a data junkie. I want it all. I want to see it all. What I love is, and I've had my team develop some of these tools for me. I wasn't able to find a package that had the ability to do this, but I love something where I could see it. I travel like you almost exclusively.
mm.
So whatever the messaging is, I need to be able to see it at 50,000 feet, literally, and understand the messaging in like 30 seconds or less. But then when I want the detail, have the ability to zoom in at the granular level and understand everything that makes up that message. Um, so I couldn't find a tool that did that. So I've got a couple of people that are really, really good at putting those types of things together. And they know what I'm looking for and have been able to really assist myself and my team in that regard. You know, what are those metrics?
Mm.
Yes, freight is, when you look at our industry, it's really simple. Freight is so critical. So slicing freight up into as, many little pieces as is practical, just to make sure that you're maximizing that component as much as possible. Metrics are critical. Just when I'm looking at, do I want material to go to this yard or that yard? Um, on the commercial side, of course, what's the there's a lot that goes into to the purchase price and even the sale price. Yes, we all want to buy the scrap that we process at the lowest possible price and sell it for the most. But every pound that you purchase isn't going to be all the way down here, and every sale isn't going to be at the top. And it's just
Sure.
using all of that variety of data points and historical information coupled with some projected future trends, which usually don't pan out as you think they would, and take that together so that you can apply that gut instinct and quickly make a decision to move forward.
Have you got anything, and you might not be able to think off the top of your head about this, but I mean, anything that you've asked for from your guys that are really good at putting this together that they were just like, wow, that's going to be super hard, but it's really exciting, or something that somebody else hasn't thought of? I'll give you an example. So, for me, one of the key things was always when we have 85 yards was I needed to know my all-in cost for any commodity at any time so I could work out what my margin was. Now, that's really
Mhm.
difficult because it includes all your freight in, plus your upgrading or downgrading, plus post shredding. So there's a lot of different factors at play. And in South Africa, we had Stephen Friedman, who was building these systems for us. That was a rocket scientist. True story. He was actually a rocket scientist,
Hmm.
and he had a team of people underneath him doing it. And I remember sitting with him, and he's like, "That sounds impossible, but it's exciting. So I'm going to try and work out." I don't think we ever got it perfect, but it's the kind of number that could help me gauge. It was never perfect, but it could help me gauge certain things.
Well, similarly, I think some of those predictive models, maybe possible, or in the future as we see advancements in AI. That's where I think I've reached the limitations in many cases of what I've been able to extract today.
Mm,
Because in our industry, one of the things that I love about it, but it also makes it so frustrating, is the number of uncontrolled variables. I haven't been
yeah.
exposed to an industry that has more uncontrolled variables than the one that we're in. And Because of that, it just makes it more of a challenge to really develop some of these predictive models.
Mm. Yeah, I think there's massive opportunities for it. Another thing that just popped into my head was if you look at the cyclicality of the global markets. And if you take into consideration Chinese New Year and Ramadan and our New Year's and everything has an effect on the market, and every year is very similar. One of the largest metal recycling company in the world sells a lot of their bulk vessels at the same time of the year, every single year, because financial year end's coming, and that does affect global trends. So we were able to have historical trends, and it's not going to get it perfect. Maybe it's going to be slightly better than 50%. But if you take that and you take the last 20 years and you take out any of the Black Swan events, all of a sudden you see a similar pattern every month. If you have that in mind and you know that, June, there might be a huge amount of bulk vessels sold, so the prices are going to drop because of the largest players. But after that, the prices could rise over the next 2 months. It helps you make those decisions. So something that we try to build, but I think with AI, it's going to be so much easier to build that now.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, I spend a lot of time looking at how AI can help us, not creating a solution looking for a problem, but focusing on the problem and seeing how we can create a solution. When Bill, when you are building up a team, and as the leader of your company, you're constantly building up a team. But what do you do about key person risk? So one of the guys has been with you for 15 years, and he gets hit by a bus tomorrow. Let's
Yeah,
say nobody's poached him, but he gets hit by a bus tomorrow. And he's right. How are you constantly managing that as a risk? Because as a leader in your position, that has to be something that you are always setting up processes and systems.
absolutely. I mean, every business, when you look at it just fundamentally, it's people, processes, and capex, capital.
Hmm.
What your question really focuses on the first two pieces of that puzzle. Yes, when we find someone, bring them up through our system, you hold on as tight as you can. And, from a retention standpoint, you give them the tools, um, you help them to focus on, their area of expertise, and you reward them, and then you really make sure from a cultural standpoint that you're creating an environment that allows them to flourish and where they want to continue to be, part of the family. They get hit by a bus.
Two different things. Yeah, exactly.
Fortunately, it hasn't happened yet, but it's the next man up theory, and we're always consistently trying to build the bench and instill those same principles and philosophies into our team, regardless of your level in the organization.
Mm. And I like that. It's the person on the bench, constantly focused on who's on the bench, who is able to do this role in the future, and whether it means somebody could be retiring or hit by a bus. It's something that, especially larger businesses, have to really consider and make sure that they are monitoring at any stage.
Absolutely, absolutely, especially in this age. I don't have the statistics uh,
Of
offhand.
people getting hit by a bus or what?
Yeah, but I mean, no, but retirement. I know when I
Yeah.
look at my own organization, and trust me, I'm holding on, but we have such a well tenured team that at some point they've, many of them have threatened to retire at some point in life, and
Sure.
for a good number of them, that timeline is 5 years or less. So it's embracing all of the good and value that they provide to the company and really benefiting from that expertise. That was one of the things that was so critical for me, and really was probably one of the main drivers that allowed me to move up in the industry over the last 20 years into the role that I hold today. It's it was really taking advantage of those mentors that were willing, and so many of them are, to just pass that information and transfer it down to the next generation. They want to. They're
I
and
was going to say
they're
that.
past the point where they have, there's nothing in it for them. They just want to share it, and they're so giving of that. And I've always found it so curious that uh, more individuals aren't, as they're moving up in their career, aren't seeking out those mentorship type relationships to take advantage of those dynamics. But that's something that we're really focused on and trying to do. It's to have that transfer of knowledge and information from the current generation to the next. It's not perfect, but it's something that we really strive to take advantage of and is a key focus of ours with our team.
What's so interesting is a lot of people think about it negatively and like, oh, if you're building up cover for me, that means you can get rid of me. Well, it's actually we want to build up cover for you in case something happens for the business, but also to free you up to do other stuff because a lot of
Exactly.
people are bogged down by working in the business, but they have this amazing ability if they had time to work on the business. But the day to day you need to be able to take away from them. So it's about managing that correctly, and I think if you do, you can be very successful. What's quite interesting in my old company, we used to say WWMMD. So what would Michael Movses do? And Michael Movses was our old CEO, and he went on to run Sims North America. And it was quite interesting because now I think about it, I'm like, if I knew Michael was leaving within 3 years, I would create a Michael Movses GPT because with I could actually learn from every one of his emails and I could learn of how he conducts meetings through transcribing all the meetings. And I could say to him, all I'm going to do is I'm going to create something that when you're not here, I can ask it a question, right? Um, and that's really with technology. If you started to lose somebody who's, say, for example, been your head trade, somebody who's been in your commercial team for 25 years and he runs this whole team, well, let's learn from him. How does he manage certain situations, right? There's a big negotiation going on. There's a claim which is based on a market drop. How would he handle it? And you can learn from all the emails. And if you start planning now, in 3 years' time, when he does decide to retire and everybody's really happy, well, you're not all of a sudden left with a massive Michael Movsas size hole. But it's something that technology can now do. So, how do you see technology affecting our industry in the future?
Well, we've talked about software a bit. We've talked a little bit about AI, and I think you know the potential there is significant for commercially, from a transportation perspective, and operationally. I think that in all walks of life, we're at a point where we're going to see a period of time when we look back 20 years from now, where there's a significant paradigm shift in the way that information is generated and used. There's almost no limits now with the advancements in AI to what we'll be able to do in the next several years. Some of the things that excite me, we've already talked about. Those predictive models. It's really going to be neat to see how that advances, but also just in how we process our material.
Absolutely.
Material identification. I know that's something that a lot of people are talking about. It's there. That's really exciting, and we're looking forward to that. Material separation. That's something that we've been focusing on for the last 5 to 10 years, and some of that technology is hitting the market now. That is really going to change the way that we process a lot of our materials. So it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, and I think if I look back to the era of my parents, if they thought, oh, well, the internet, whatever this thing is, let's ignore it, it'll go away. And I look at the parents that kind of, well, my parents' generation who did actually utilize it and did actually use it, and they get a lot further, and they can
You have to.
jump on Facebook and all these sort of things and use a Wi-Fi. And then you got the other generation who just can't. And if you're thinking like that in AI, and you think, oh, well, I'm just going to bury my head in the sand like an ostrich, I think you got another thing coming. Like it's adapt or die. If you think your fourth generation business is going to be around for the sixth and seventh generation, if you don't start adapting now, I think you got another thing coming.
I agree. Yeah, I love quotes. I really do. Actually, at my home office, I just have a wall of my favorite quotes,
Amazing.
and it's ever changing. But There's another one, and that's embrace everything. You really do. With every challenge in life, it provides an opportunity. And, with technology, we have to embrace it. If you don't, you're going to be left in the dust. I think it's as simple as that.
We've now got me really excited for the final question at the end, which is your favorite quote. So I'm going to work out how, you had to choose one. So it's going to be quite interesting when that comes around. But we'll get there soon, but not yet, not yet.
Okay.
Bill, one or two more questions first. I wanted
Gotcha.
to ask you about equipment. When you guys are making a decision to buy a new piece of equipment, what is the process that you guys follow? Number one, what is the process to follow, what you want to buy, but also that you need to buy something?
Gotcha. So, I mean, two buckets, you have your sustaining or maintenance CapEx and then your growth CapEx. So what we've done is really standardize the way that we manage our sustaining or maintenance piece. You look at the useful life of an asset, and what we've done a better job is, looking at not only just trying to put it on a 7-year cycle or based on number of hours, but also with the experience with that specific equipment type or manufacturer. When you start to see those R&M costs really accelerate, or instances of downtime, and trying to move before you hit those periods where you're losing a lot of money on your P&L because you just have a piece of equipment that's dead in the yard, or you're spending an exorbitant amount of money just keeping her going. So we've done a better job of managing that piece, and it's really had a significant impact on our R&M cost and our downtime. And it's a combination, and that also impacts the decision-making process of when we purchase or when we lease. On the growth side, yes, you would love that growth budget to be infinite, right? Because there's, seemingly an infinite amount of opportunity in our world, but it's not. So you develop the budget back into it, and you just look at, rate of return and growth potential, impact to the business.
And what is the worst piece or best piece of equipment you've ever bought? And you don't have to mention the brand name if you don't want to.
Yeah. So the worst piece of equipment that we've ever purchased really was a really good piece of equipment. We just didn't do the homework. We thought we were buying something for X. We thought that the output was going to be Y, but we didn't do the homework on the front end to realize that it wasn't the right tool for our needs.
So it wasn't
And
the
that was a
equipment's fault.
very
You just
costly
hadn't done.
mistake.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, that makes sense. When your equipment comes to end of life, are you the company that cuts it up and it melts it, or do you sell it back into the market, like speaking to the likes of Dade Auctions, who take our equipment and put them into the market, or are you just like, no, this must go to no one because it could go to opposition?
So it's rare that we'll sell used equipment back into the market. Usually we maximize the useful life of that equipment. And actually, because we've got such a great team in our engineering group and maintenance technicians, that we're usually able to extend the life of that equipment well beyond what is typical. So usually there's not much left of it when we're done.
So it gets cut up and melted.
Yes.
Last thing, Bill, before we go to the quick fire, getting to know you round, who do you want to hear next on Born Scrappy?
That's a good question. Really, I don't know. There's not a name that's coming to mind. If I think of one, I'll let you know. But I'd love to hear the perspective of, I love to hear all perspectives, but especially more, operations oriented. I know that some of these questions are more commercial oriented, but their view on some of these topics as well. You have to be well-rounded in this industry. And I think that perspective really helps those that are more commercial oriented really do a better job in their roles as well.
I think it might be, it probably has more to do with the questions than the people that I've had on. So maybe we can do, next season, maybe we just focus more on operational questions. And we try to bring that a bit more in with the equipment, which we threw now at the end. But I hear what you're saying. It makes sense. Bill, let's get to know you a little bit better before we go. Have you got a favorite TV series or movie?
I don't watch television. Um, I love Christmas movies. And
Okay.
by the way, we're halfway to Christmas.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. True. True.
it's so, uh, but yeah, television. I think the
What's your
average
favorite
American.
Christmas movie?
Oh, It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay. Cool. Then there you go. You got a favorite movie.
Just yeah, I do, I do, I do.
What's your favorite place to visit?
I travel extensively, like you do. So as a result, I really cherish my time at home. Basically, wherever my family is, I want to be there with them. And if I can be out in nature and with my family, that's when I'm the happiest.
Bill, I'm not going to let you get away with that. You have to choose a place. Give me one name, one place that you'd like to go to. That if you could go, take your family there right now, where would you go?
Okay. I really love Wyoming. I really
There
love
you go.
Grand Tetons National Park. That's
Amazing.
really a spectacular place.
I really just asked so that I have a list of places to visit. So it's a little bit selfish. So I'm glad you gave me somewhere to take my family.
Well, you should check
Thanks.
it out.
Yeah, no. I know you love reading. So what's your favorite book?
My favorite book that I've read this year is Strength to Strength.
Right. You
And
mentioned it.
it's, I used to just recommend books. I learned upon a specific recommendation that I should actually read the entire thing first before recommending. But this one is my favorite this year.
Right.
It's not complicated, but I think especially with where I am right now in life, it was really impactful for me. I've read it a couple of times, and it's a great read.
Amazing. Okay, last thing, because you're a massive quote guy, it fills your wall. If you had to choose one favorite quote, what would
All
it
right,
be?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
So it's attributed to Winston Churchill, although I'm not sure that he actually said it. But I think it's a wonderful quote. And that is this: Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts.
Amazing.
And I think it just
Absolutely. I love
encapsulates
it.
our business.
100%. I think that is the most incredible quote. I absolutely love it. I always knew it as Winston Churchill. I didn't know it wasn't necessarily his. So I'll make sure to mention that next time. Maybe I'll have to ask ChatGPT when we're done here who actually did say that. But Bill, on that note, that's the end of the episode. It's been amazing having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining Born Scrappy.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.